I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house. Ranking the Nightmare on Elm Street films is something I have been putting off for years. Freddy is my favourite slasher, bar none. I actually think he is a league above everyone else. He changed the game, he changed the horror culture. And for years I had a vague ranking in my head. The middle of the pack always sort of shifted and swapped. Over the last couple of months over Facebook, I've been rewatching the franchise in 3 movie chunks with friends, all of us commentating through, and thought this would be a great time to sort of fix my ranking based on recent views, and my goodness, the results shocked me. No one is going to like this ranking video. That's fine. Get poised to mash that thumb down button, and you can by all means disagree with me civilly in the comments down below. I appreciate this isn't going to be popular. I'm intensely surprised by the final order based on a recent watch. I'm not basing this on how good I think the movies are objectively. It's my enjoyment of them. Some real surprises rose through the ranks and some shockers dropped down to the bottom. So here it is, for better or for worse. This is how I currently rank the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I'm including Freddy vs. Jason in this. It feels like more of an Elm Street movie. That's why I missed it out of my Friday the 13th ranking. At number 9, we're starting off safe, baby steps. It is still the remake. I find it dour. I find it nasty. I think it has kind of missed the point. I understand that perhaps Wes Craven did originally intend Freddy to be a paedophile, but cooler heads prevailed, and going full on paedophile just leaves it a really nasty taste in the back of the throat. I'm sure there are ways that subject matter can be explored in a mature and horrifying way, and even in horror films. But unfortunately, part of the excitement of slasher movies, part of the joy of slasher movies, is that for a while at least you sort of cheer on the killer. You sort of cheer on Candyman, Jason, Michael Myers. And this Freddy is so repulsive, so obnoxious. And it's, right, there are a couple of little good things in it. I like the idea of micronaps. I like the idea of him fixating on Nancy and keeping her awake for so long that she falls into a coma and he has her forever. But this Freddy, he does nothing with the dreamscape. You're in a dream and then he just comes in from the side, boo, and then, or he just stabs you and it's done. It's over. It's terrible. At number 8, the first shocker for me is New Nightmare in my head. I know, in my head I had ranked this way higher, having watched it again the other weekend. The short version is my head loves it, but my heart doesn't love it. It's far too full of itself. It looks like a Lifetime movie an awful lot of the way through it. The new glove is awful. While it's great to see all the old gang back, having Wes, bless him, and I'm hating to put this so low, but have him talking about needing to make another movie, just, yeah, I get it, it's meta, but it's too much. It's way too on the nose. The new Freddy isn't to my liking. Now, Robert Englund is fantastic in this, playing a version of himself, the new Freddy, sort of goofily taking the mickey out of the old sort of commercial Freddy that gets put on lunchboxes. Heather's great in it. I actually don't think the kid's great in it. I want to say Miko Hughes. When I first watched this when it came out, I really liked his performance, but boy, it has aged badly. The one shining bright spot in this movie is anytime John Saxon's on screen is fantastic. And the short sequence where he is talking to Heather and that slowly morphs into him being Mr. Thompson and her being Nancy, and the costumes subtly change and then the house changes and stuff. That is a set piece for the ages, a sequence of absolute pure brilliance. But the time and the effort taken to get us to that point, and then the final showdown with this Freddy entity at the end is a little bit of a letdown. It's just too much of a drag for that one bright shot, but boy is it bright. At number 7, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child has dropped a couple for me. I like the mini trilogy inside the franchise, and I was thinking tons of them have got them. Friday the 13th has got 2, 3 and 4. Halloween has got the Thorn trilogy 4, 5 and 6, and Nightmare on Elm Street within the wider franchise has got Dream Warriors, Dream Master, Dream Child. I liked that. I do really like Alice's arc from Dream Master to Dream Child. It's not something you see in slasher movies. She really develops, she really does grow. One thing I found through this rewatch, I really hate the Amanda Kruger mythology, the bastard son of 100 maniacs. It's too much. It's too clunky a backstory to add on. A guy who killed children, was killed himself by vigilante parents, and has come back for revenge as a dream demon is plenty. It's enough. There is enough marrow in that bone to suck on. Gilding the lily and adding this backstory and this nun, and then she comes back as a ghost and you have to sanctify his bones and all of this. It's too much. It's bad. I also, and this is a factor of me coming back to it with old eyes, really dislike how rabidly pro-life this movie is. It's not even subtle about it. I mean, I would have been much more comfortable with this if Alice had been much more far gone in her pregnancy, but the idea that as soon as you become pregnant, there's this little spirit child that can talk to you, and my mummy wants to kill me and all of this kind of stuff, and she doesn't love me, and it's kind of repugnant, and it left a really bad taste in my mouth. So that means at number 6, higher than The Dream Child, I have placed Freddys Dead, which was gonna go way down the bottom of the list. But do you know what? It's fun. Its tone is consistent all the way through. I wish it were less cartoony than it is, but it just is. I like all the kids in it. Carlos's death scene is one for the highlights reel for the entire franchise. As much as I say I don't like adding to the backstory and the mythology, I don't really think we do in the sequences where we go inside Freddy's head and into his past. I just think we add colour to the basic story. There's something wrong with Freddy, and he's a killer. He's not a nice person. I liked that stuff. I liked that Robert got to play with that and we got to see it. I'm not a fan of the 3D. I'm not a fan of the Sumerian dream demons that got us there. I think, as was intended at the time, to finally end the franchise and have this showdown for the ages, it's an awful, awful showdown. The power glove is far too goofy. There's lots of stuff I don't like about this movie, and yet on rewatch it was fun. I had a good time with it. I'll be happy to return to it. Next, at number 5, I put Freddy vs. Jason, which is another, it sort of slots in with Freddys Dead. It's a goofy movie. It's stupid as hell, but it's a lot of fun. Let me put all my cards on the table. Freddy vs. Jason as a concept should not work. I know there are people out there who hate it. The simple fact that we've got these two franchises and two mythologies which shouldn't mesh in one film together in some vaguely coherent form is a miracle in and of itself. I really dislike the fact that the script treats us, the audience, as absolute idiots. There are no less than 3 times where characters one of them being Freddy, I think Freddy does it twice, explicitly tells us, hey, maybe Freddy's using Jason to make us remember him so that he can get his power back, so that he can do this. Yeah, I get it. You can tell me once and it can stay there. In fact, you know what? You can even tell me nonce, no times, and we'll probably pick up what's going on. Freddy looks great in this movie. I think Jason looks great in this movie. I know a lot of people rag on Ken Kersinger and his performance for Jason. I think an awful lot of that is residual fan anger that Kane Hodder didn't get his shot. I completely understand why Kane Hodder was pissed off at not getting his shot. I don't think Kane Hodder's Jason versus Robert Englund's Freddy, as it was then, would have worked at all. Personality wise, and yeah, I think Kane does give Jason a very specific personality separate to all the other actors and stunt people that have played Jason. I don't think Kane Hodder's Jason personality would have been as much of a dupe for Freddy as the Ken Kersinger Jason that we get. This is what the director wanted, and for me personally, with this versus sort of mashup, this harkens all the way back to things like Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula from Universal Pictures, rather than necessarily having to tie directly into the Friday the 13th franchise and the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. It's got more of the spirit of those mashups, and the relationship between Freddy and Jason in that movie feels an awful lot more like the way Dracula or the mad scientists try and use the Frankenstein monster in those pictures, and ultimately he breaks free of their control and is the sort of powerhouse that brings the windmill or the castle tumbling down, blows up the dam and foils the plan of the evil genius. And that is exactly what we get in Freddy versus Jason. He's an unstoppable force, and ultimately Freddy can't control him. But I think for that to work, he has to be slightly more Frankenstein monster than Kane Hodder's Jason. At number 4, The Dream Warriors. Yes, I know. I was surprised as well. It's the Amanda Kruger stuff. That's honestly what it is. The first half of this movie is phenomenal. It takes Wes's original and turns it into an absolute blockbuster. It turns Freddy into a de facto superstar. No ifs, ands or buts. I like the idea of the kids coming together and joining forces to try and save themselves and beat Freddy. But on rewatch, for me personally, there is no question that the wheels start to come off towards the end. The boyfriend goes and finds John Saxon, Detective Thompson, Mr. Thompson, who's a bit of a rummy by now, and they have to go and dig up Freddy's bones, and the bones come to life in the real world like some Ray Harryhausen thing, and they have to bury it and consecrate it and stuff like that, and none of that makes sense. If you really want to dive down into the nitty-gritty of it, why has Skeleton Freddy got his glove with him when Nancy's mum took his glove and kept it in their boiler in the first movie? It's just, all of that stuff is absolute nonsense. It's not required at all, and narratively, it's really shaky. It's really clunky. The kids. Stay with the kids. We like the kids. None of this ghost nun bury his bones nonsense. Freddy doesn't need it. He never needed it. So in number 3 spot, I've promoted The Dream Master, which is... You can level the accusation that it's a watered down, more insipid version of The Dream Warriors, and I would have to agree with you. However, tonally from start to finish, it's of a piece. It doesn't have these clunky, extra new ghost nun characters and this weird other stuff. It's back to basics. Freddy's killing kids. The kids have to try and survive. An awful lot of them don't, and our final survivor beats him. I think, yeah, it looks a bit more glitzy, it looks a bit more MTV, the kind of jokey, low-key Freddy that we get from this point on. I think The Rock set in a little there in Dream Warriors, but the balance was right. But you know what? I don't mind it. Rennie Harlan directs the absolute shit out of this. There are great set pieces in it. That's one thing I didn't say about New Nightmare. There are no set pieces. There's nothing to really get your teeth into. The Dream Master, it's all teeth. Yeah, the death by invisible karate is bad, and you watch that and it's clearly let's have a dream sequence where it's just a person on set, and so that we can funnel some money into some of the more visually spectacular dream sequences. You can see that there's a little bit of accounting going on there with Invisible Kung Fu Freddy. Which takes me to number 2. Regular viewers aren't going to be at all surprised of my 2 and 1, and some of you will be very upset about it. I'm putting the original Nightmare on Elm Street in number 2 spot. It is the superior film. It's a better made film. It's the film that changed the game. It's the film that blew everyone's minds. It might be fatigue on my part. I have seen it so many times that there are sections in the film which lag, which go limp, which I could potentially sort of fast forward through. And I feel really bad putting it in number 2 because I actually think it's a game changer. You get, every once in a while, you get a film that comes along which completely changes what horror cinema is. Night of the Living Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist, Nightmare on Elm Street is up there with them. I mean, easily. No question, to the horror community and to horror cinema and horror fiction, I think A Nightmare on Elm Street is that important. It's just a quirk of my personality that I happen to enjoy. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddys Revenge, that little bit more. I just get a kick out of it. I always have, at the risk of repeating myself. I think this version of Freddy is the best looking. I think he's the evilest. He's the most insidious. At that point, people talk about it breaking the rules of the first film. All the films break the rules of all the previous films. Freddy does and is able to do whatever he needs to do in that film to have the story in that film happen. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with him trying to break through into the real world in the first film by the end and getting his ass handed to him. So this time round, a little bit weaker, a little bit more coy about it. I'm just going to focus on this one kid who's got problems, and I'm going to prey on them. I'm going to feed on them like a leech. This insecurity and fear he's got about who he is, I'm just going to psychically stick myself on the side of his head, and I'm going to grow fat on that, and I'm going to influence the world through him, and I'm going to try and come back through him. It's a possession movie, and I don't have a problem with that. It's about something. It's about something that a lot of movies don't tackle. I love the fact that the horror genre can talk about these taboo subjects years before mainstream entertainment starts talking about it and has us face things like that. I think Mark Patton does a fucking bang up job. I think Grady and I'm forgetting all of their names. I think they're great. I think the sequences are fantastic. I love A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddys Revenge. There's my ranking. I don't think anyone will agree with it, but by all means, this is your opportunity to have a vigorous but polite and civil debate in the comment section down below if you want. And if you want to mash that down thumb, that is absolutely what that down thumb is there for. So please, let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear from you.